Welcome to another weekly Forex forecast, and we start on the DXY on the weekly time frame, and we had a bearish week, but we can see here we ended on quite a week, and we see on the lower time frame that we are right now trading a bit in no man's land here. We did identify these two areas last week, a bit more significant areas of interest, and then we see here price turned around in between these areas, a bit in no man's land, and left here a very nice liquidity area, a small hook point, and right now we are trading somewhere in between. I have these two parallel lines here more as a visual guide. They are not very strong and not that important, so for me right now I'm looking for price to form a bit more clear price action, so we can easily see that price is accumulating a bit more volume in form of a bear flag continuation, and then we can play the range from here to here in the dollar related pairs. On the other hand, if we see price breaking above this area and we see on the lower time frame a bull flag continuation, then we know we can trade the area from here at least into this a bit more significant area of interest, before we then potentially see a turnaround for the next leg to the downside, retesting this low. So we see here we have quite a few options, but we want to see price giving us a clear signal first in this area to then decide what direction we will play in the other dollar related pairs. In Euro US dollar, it's a very similar picture. Of course, we are here on the 4-hour time frame, and we can see we have this previous high here. We tapped into this liquidity area here, and we are now trading a bit in no man's land. So again, here it is possible for price to stall around here, accumulate a bit more volume, forming a bull flag continuation. Then we know that would be very deliberate price action. On the other hand, if we see price tapping into the previous high and then giving us some form of a reversal on the lower time frame, then we also know we take the message from the market to short this area. But you can see right now we do need a bit more development in price action in this area. Australian dollar, US dollar, on the daily time frame, we had this very nice expanding structure here with the 1, 2, 3, and then it looked like price will break out. But we see we have a very nice high test candle, ended bearish with this bearish high test candle. On the 4-hour time frame, price did break outside the structure and close, but we see a very strong reversal candlestick pattern here and some nice follow-throughs. And now we are again here a bit in no man's land between the previous two, on the previous high and low. So I'm looking now for a short continuation on the 1-hour time frame, at least a deliberate structure in form of a bear flag structure, preferably a 1, 2, 3 into this small liquidity area, or retesting this low here to then enter a short in that area. Pound US dollar on the daily time frame, we discussed that last week. We had here this quite significant area of interest. It was a liquidity area. We saw that on the higher time frame, and then we had this 1, 2, 3 expanding structure and tapped this high with a structure within structure, another 1, 2, 3 leading into that area. And then we saw a bearish reaction here, tapping the first initial target, and then we failed to initially continue to the downside in this area. Instead, we saw a quite aggressive reversal, which lines up with more or less the 50% reversal of this initial impulsive move. And then we saw another, again, a bearish reaction in this area. So I'm going straight to the 1-hour time frame. We can see here we did tap, price did tap here into this liquidity area. So there is an area of interest where it turned around, and then we had a very nice impulsive run to the downside. And I'm now looking similar to Australian dollar, US dollar before, for a bit more deliberate bearish continuation structure, preferably a 1, 2, 3 retesting this low here to then enter a short in this area. US dollar, Japanese yen on the weekly time frame, we are discussing this pair as well on and off the previous few weeks. We still have this gap to fill here to the low. We have here a small gap this V-shaped recovery, so it would make sense for price to go in either direction. And we have here on the 4-hour time frame, we discussed this structure last week already, where we're looking for this 1, 2, 3 for price tapping in this area, or then here the override area for a sell-off. We did get an initial sell-off, but we did not even reach the initial first target. Instead, we turned around and are now trading on this area of interest here to the left, but we did not get a clear, here on the 1-hour time frame, we did not get an aggressive or a clear reaction in that area. And you can see here is even a small gap to this hook point here, or liquidity point, however you want to call it. And now I'm looking for price to show me some more deliberate price action. So if we see a bit more price stalling correctively a bit longer in this area, that would then give me some clues that we potentially go up one more time and finishing the structure within structure and tapping also the high of the previous or bigger higher time frame structure we saw before on the higher time frame. So that's what I'm leaning more towards to right now. However, if we see a change in momentum and a momentum break to the downside followed by a lower time frame bearish continuation, then yeah, of course, we take the sign of the market and continue the short in this area. There's still enough room to go even to this structure low here to the left. Euro Canadian dollar on the daily time frame, we discussed it as well a long time already, since price actually reached this area here between these two a bit more significant areas of interest. And we can see now we got some bullish momentum, especially towards the end of last week. On the 4-hour time frame, we can see here price finished this 1, 2, 3 bullish structure into this liquidity area, and then a bit correctively moved away and until we get a bit more bullish momentum here towards the end of the week. And now on the 1-hour time frame, I'm looking for price to show a bit more deliberate price action, preferably something like that, retesting this small high here in form of a bull flag continuation into then New York session to then enter along in this area on Monday. Overall, we have to be careful here on the daily time frame or even go to the weekly time frame for the levels. We are trading between these two areas, so that's definitely a significant area where we have to be careful that price could turn around, and then we have the next area of interest a bit higher up. So, and you can see here after this very nice move to the upside, we are now stalling. That's a correction, and that could be the next more bullish momentum run to the upside, and that would then, if that is enough volume accumulated in this area and it's really the start of the next run to the upside, then we can easily reach the second target or even go higher with this volume accumulation here. Keep in mind that's the weekly time frame. Pound Australian dollar on the 4-hour time frame, we are looking for a bearish continuation. We have this bigger bearish structure here, and then we had quite a, to be honest, the price action here in this area does not look the cleanest, but we see we tapped the low, the structure low here, and then we had a very nice initial run to the upside, and we failed here to continue to the upside. Instead, we had this almost V-shaped recovery and then a very aggressive bearish momentum run to the downside, and we did not tap the low yet. So overall, I'm still more leaning to the bearish side here, and I'm now looking for price to form or to finish actually this 1, 2, 3 structure here. So preferably without tapping this low here to the left. So if we see price on Monday just going back up here, finishing this structure, then that would be an ideal entry for a short. On the other hand, if price just breaks below the low, we are looking for a lower time frame bear flag continuation below this area here. Pound Canadian on the daily time frame, we had this nice expanding structure into this high here. Very nice bearish reaction initially. On the 4-hour time frame, we can see here, then we had a correction here, followed by the next impulsive move, and we are now in a bigger correction. So sequence-wise, that would make sense. So we had the initial push, the first smaller correction, now a bigger correction. They're still fairly large, and we still have room to the first initial target to the downside. We did not retest this low yet, and you can see here I have these lines here already, so I'm looking for price to go back up one more time, closing the gaps here into this previous low before we then see the next run to the downside. So there could be a lower time frame long trade in here, from here to here, but it has to be very clear, very deliberate price action. It would make sense. We did tap this previous high here. We still have a gap to the low, of course, but with our overall bearish sentiment, and we have and we get deliberate price action here during Asia session on Monday, then I would entertain a long to just finish the last leg here. Australian dollar, Canadian on the daily time frame, we identified this as a value area here. We have a gap. We tapped this first area of interest in form of a 1, 2, 3, had an initial sell-off, did not reach the first initial target. We left the gap to the downside. On the 4-hour time frame, you can see we have a bit conflicting price action. That at the moment looks a bit more like we might see a bigger M shape recovery, and we are now in an upwards momentum run. So right now I'm looking for price to close the gap, potentially tapping the next higher area of interest here. And I'm looking now on the lower time frame, on the 1-hour time frame, for clear signals. We do have this area here, this high, which aligns with this small liquidity area here. And if we see, ideally, if we see something like that, a 1, 2, 3 into this area, that would be prime area for a long, to enter a long. And this would also be more than enough volume accumulation to at least reach the second area of interest. Australian dollar, Swiss francs on the daily time frame. We see we still have this low to retest one more time, and we can see we have a very nice bear flag continuation after this fairly corrective price action. And we do know that in these corrective channels, it tends to show the last structure is a fairly flat structure before we then drop out to the downside. And we actually did finish this structure. We can see that clear on the 4-hour time frame. We did not tap the outside of the structure, but we had the price reaction here on this overall area, the previous high. And you can see overall this bear flag structure is in play. And I'm now looking on the 1-hour time frame for a smaller continuation. This would again make sense. We tapped the high, we had the first small continuation, we left the liquidity area here, and I'm now looking for price to form a bigger 1-hour structure here, preferably something like that, again, a 1, 2, 3 into this liquidity area to then enter a short in this area. And New Zealand dollar, Canadian on the daily time frame. It's a bit messy, and we are in a bit neutral territory. So you can see we had this very corrective squeeze here. We have this area of interest. That's a value area here to the left. We then finally tapped the low. So we made a new low here on this squeeze and had a fairly good bullish reaction after tapping the low. And I'm now looking on the 4-hour time frame. You can see here it's really conflicting price action. We had a very nice reaction here, but then we failed to continue. Instead, we came back down, did not tap the low again, and had then a very nice bullish momentum run. Did now not even tap this previous high here from this V-shape recovery. So as long as we don't tap this high, and you can see on the 1-hour time frame, we have this clear liquidity area, and we are trading through this liquidity area here to the left. And ideally, we see price coming back down one more time, closing the gap, and then we would have this 1, 2, 3 for a bullish continuation. That would be prime to enter long in that area here, at least to close the previous gaps to the higher time frame area of interest or value area we identified before. So that's it. That's my watch list for next week. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Bye bye.